Our DNA is as a change-making church. From the 1800s, starting 125 years ago, United Methodists and Methodists came to this corner, well, actually we started at that corner, but came to this corner to do what churches do: praise God, learn about God, worship together, pray together. But that was never enough for the people on this corner. Getting out into the community to change the world, tikkun olam, to heal the world with God's love, has always been a part of this church's DNA. So we're going to continue to lift that up. The life you've been looking for is that life. The life you've been looking for is that life. The most fulfilling, the most joyful, the most meaningful life. When Spencer asked this question, I came over and said to Dave, I feel like that's my whole life. My whole life is going off thinking I'm going to do something nice for somebody else, and I get back way more than I ever gave. It's the most amazing way to live. Members and friends of our church are all over this community, doing change making in the way of Jesus. And as a church, we have a few signature ministries that belong to us. We have Pathways of Hope, and we do a food drive once a month, and Ellen Lentz is our leader for that. We have our community breakfast, and you hear about that a lot. Terry Zero is our leader with that, with Perry helping to create the breakfast. And just before the pandemic, the movement of the Holy Spirit here that connected us with Dave and Shannon Edmondson and Rancho La Hermosa Orphanage really started to set things on fire, and then the pandemic just poured a bunch of water on that, right? But even so, during the pandemic, well, you'll hear more about that, because today we're going to jump back in with a splash. So I want to start by sharing this psalm with you. I told you last week that in these conversations I've been having with Dave, he reminded me of something I kind of knew but hadn't really paid attention to, that almost 40, I'm going to steal some of your thunder, I know, sorry. You can repeat it because half of them aren't listening anyway. Up to 40 scriptures talk about God's heart for orphans and widows. Listen to this. Let the righteous be joyful. Let them exult before God. Let them be jubilant with joy. Sing to God, sing praises to God's name. Lift up a song to him who rides upon the clouds. His name is the Lord. Be exultant before him. Father of orphans and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation. Hear the word of the Lord, you rulers of Sodom. Listen to the teaching of our God, you people of Gomorrah. What is it to me, the multitude of your sacrifices, says the Lord? This is not beginning well, is it? Just last week I preached a sermon called God is Not Angry with You, and here we have scripture contradicting me. But rough words make for sweet promises. Let's continue just a bit and see what happens. Trample my courts no more. Bringing offerings is futile. Don't listen to this. Keep your offerings coming. Incense is an abomination to me. Yeah. Okay, so now it's starting to sound a little more like the things we don't like either about overly sanctimonious religious people. We don't like ourselves or others putting on a big show of religion and then living in a selfish, earth-destroying, life-ruining way, do we? We don't like that either. Maybe we have a God who isn't so much angry at us as frustrated with us. You know, in that, seriously, I have to keep reminding you about this kind of way. Maybe it's not so much that God is angry and pushing us away, but frustrated that we keep moving away. And several thousand years ago, when the Psalms were written, the worldview of people was, if things aren't going well, it's because God is angry. We've come to the point where we no longer think that, but it's not hard to see that that would be folks in that time's experience and the way they would think about it. We can think about it in a different way. We keep moving away, and we experience the loneliness and sorrow that makes us feel like God has abandoned us. When you stretch out your hands, the prophet says on behalf of God, I'll hide my eyes from you, even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. So I want to offer you the Pastor Paula version of this. At the risk of being, excommunicated, I rewrote this part of the psalm just a little in a way that makes more sense to me. Imagine God's voice saying, when you stretch out your heart to me, I will seem hidden to you because your heart is full of unkindness. You have no compassion. It will seem as if I'm not listening to you because you've taken yourself so far away from me by your waywardness and indifference to my call to you, to being about the business of healing the world. There you go. Psalm written by me. Because in the next phrase in Isaiah, we get the prescription for the sickness, this sickness we have of self-will run riot. Wash yourselves. Make yourselves clean. In other words, find a way to transform your life. Remove the evil of your doings. Okay? I mean, we're all working on that, I hope. From before my eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do good. Okay, we're trying. Seek justice, rescue the oppressed. We're working on it. And here's the phrase for today. Defend the orphan. Plead for the widows. Today, we're going to do just that. We're going to join together to defend the orphan. Dave Edmondson is here to share with us, and Spencer and I are going to sit up here. We're going to have a little conversation with Dave, but we're going to start with this beautiful video that Dave brought us. Let's have the video come up. You guys can come.
In the Baja region, there's over 7,000 kids either on the streets or in the holding facilities. Kids wind up in the system and they are horribly neglected and not cared for. By the time a child makes it to an orphanage, they have experienced horrific things. As we care for the orphans at Rancho La Hermosa, what we're doing is we're shaping their spirits, their hearts, their minds, and their souls. They're in need of triage attention, which we give, and then most importantly, we get them to the point where they know that they're safe and they can be loved and cared for. It's our heart passion to love these kids back to life, to care for them, to provide spiritual care for them and direction within the context of a community. That is what we're all about. Quite often what happens with young people that live and grow up in an orphanage is they don't learn the life skills in order to navigate real life, and so they will leave an orphanage completely ill-equipped. Kids don't have opportunities for education, for vocational training, and for real growth. Quite often what happens is this cycle of poverty is just perpetuated and continued. There are lovely, wonderful people in the community. They just don't have the opportunities to break out. And now we're inviting you in to the most amazing endeavor to be able to create a place where young adults can learn to thrive. We purchased a large enough lot to build 2 structures, 3 stories, one for the young adult women, one for the young adult men, and this is a place where they're going to grow and they're going to thrive and they're going to get educated, vocationally trained. It's the launching pad into an abundant, thriving life. They will be plugged into things like dental assistant, welding certificate, construction certification, or hospitality, chef, culinary school. And as a result, our kids will leave this program with a marketable skill where they can do life well on their own. Our number one goal, the thing that we feel God has called us to, the thing that really burns in our belly, is to create an environment where these young people can experience the love of God.
We've known Flora and her sisters for years. Her father brought her and her sisters here in 2019, and they were the first children to enter into our home. Flora has many dreams for the future. She wants to enter into the medical field, and we are committed to her for life.
This is Brian, and Brian is the oldest of a sibling set of 4. Brian's history is a sad one because it involves abandonment and it involves a lot of pain. But in Rancho La Hermosa, he has family and he has love and he has people that are so dearly committed and devoted to him. And Brian loves playing guitar, and we can't wait to see the other skills and giftings that will emerge. The possibilities are endless, and we're just so thrilled that we're going to create this environment where Brian and many others to follow can thrive and grow. There is nothing like what we are describing to you. What I need is a group of people that can latch on to this project and that you can roll up your sleeves and help us, which means we all give our energy, our time, our money, and our passion. When you change the life of a young person, when you introduce them to Christ and the love of God, there is an exponential principle that takes place. They become wonderful husbands and wives, beautiful parents, loving neighbors, and they have the eyes of Christ. This endeavor is so much bigger than we could do on our own. We need the support and the camaraderie of all those coming our way so we can accomplish this.
I know, that's a good video, Dave. That's a good video. And that tells us probably what your next chapter is all about, and that's going to be exciting. And of course, we're going to want to hear more about that. And we know a little bit about the last 5 years as we've talked about, finding the orphanage and being engaged with you a little bit. But I have a hunch that this started longer ago than that. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Good morning. It's a long story, but I promise not to be long. My wife and I, Shannon, sitting over here, we have been Christians for 38 plus years, married 36 years, 5 children, and have done what all of us are doing, raising kids, working, just doing life. And as we have been walking with the Lord and becoming more obedient to the things He's called us to, we kind of went through like the best midlife crisis possible. Like the healthiest midlife crisis. And it was a question we were asking ourselves, like, God has given us so much. What responsibilities do we have to make sure that we are passing on, that we become a conduit of God's mercy and His grace and His power and His strength? And so we went on this journey, we're still on it, where we just kept asking the right questions and kind of praying a dangerous prayer, which is, Lord, help me understand the things that are important to you. Break my heart for the things that break yours.
Yep. So
that's powerful.
What was, in your spiritual life, as the two of you started on this journey, what were some of the obstacles that just sort of popped up for you?
Oh, boy. There's obstacles every day, every moment. Right. Yeah.
Anything that made you think, oh, we're just not going to be able to do this?
Yes. It's difficult because it's such a balance of, I've got a full-time job. We're raising kids. We have so many things on our plate, like most people, if not everyone here. Right. And there's just that balance of time, energy, emotion, strength, money, everything all mixed together. And usually there's strains on most of them. Yeah.
Right. So how did you sort through all of that stuff in order to hear from and follow God's leading?
You had mentioned it earlier in the service. We, as Christians, as we're reading the Word through the years, there's over 40 references to the fatherless, the motherless, the alien, the widow, the orphan. And so we were kind of hit with the reality that, if God says something once in the Scriptures, it's important. If He says it twice, it's important. If he says it 3 times, he's making a point. But when he says it over 40 times, it's really another level. It's his nature. It's who he is.
It's also a sign that we're not listening very well.
That's right. And he's so kind and gracious to us that he tells us over and over, right?
Yeah.
But we kind of caught a glimpse, and we've never lost sight of it, that it is truly God's nature to love the fatherless and the motherless. And so we want to be a part of what's important to him. And that has driven us even when our gas tank is empty.
Right. So how did the Holy Spirit lead you to this particular place and these particular people?
We, for years, would take our kids down to an orphanage in Baja. And so a couple times a year, we'd go down there. And then over time, God just puts something, and we call it an ache for the orphan. He just put it in our belly. It was just, I feel like it was a deposit from God, just of graciousness and kindness on his part. And so we just have been kind of taking it step by step. We chose Baja because it says love your neighbor. Well, they're a 2.5-hour drive, and we are in our neighbor's backyard. And it's a neighbor that has tremendous need with no safety nets. So that was really the motivation. How can we do something from a sustained perspective?
Yep. So we talked a little bit, Spencer gave us a chance in the beginning to say when have you given and found yourself getting more? If you could say just one thing that was an unexpected gift to you spiritually as you did this. Obviously, you didn't win the lottery, or you wouldn't be asking us to help you financially, right?
Wow. Well, I would say the last 15 years, we've been on this quest for a little over 15 years of caring for the orphan in Baja, and our faith has deepened at a tremendous level. Quite a wonderful surprise to us. We now pray bigger prayers because God has told us, do not underestimate me. Right. You pray big prayers. Yep. So that probably is
Had yourself a Gideon moment?
Yes, yeah. Over and over. Yeah.
Right. That's fabulous. So we have a video from someone I think you know. Can we have the video up?
Good morning, Paula and Spencer, and hello, Dave and Shannon. I was so looking forward to participating with you all in the Rancho La Hermosa Day at FFUMC today, but the dreaded COVID has me in isolation at home. Please know that I am watching the festivities online from here. I was looking forward to sharing a bit of my personal history with mission activities in Mexico as a member of FFUMC. It started back in the 70s during my junior and senior years in high school. We made 2 trips at spring break to help build a church building in Tecate, just over the border. In addition to learning actual construction skills, we also forged friendships from the experience as we traveled to and from Mexico and camped in tents on the church grounds, shared meals and campfires during those weeks. Fast forward 21 years to 1993, and I'm now a youth director, trying to create that same experience for the youth of our church. In order to set the stage for the Youth Mission Project, we first took a group of men to Rancho Milagro, an orphanage near Ensenada. Imagine 15 engineers and business managers framing a new roof for the chapel building, some with conflicting ideas of how it should be done. We repeated that trip with the youth, who applied the finishing touches to the chapel renovation project. We spent the week camping on the orphanage property, installing windows and playing with the children, doing some painting, and hopefully locking in the memory of our own youth that there is much mission to do in the world. Fast forward another 26 years to 2019, when I met Dave and Shannon Edmondson and heard their story about being called to create Rancho La Hermosa Orphanage. A group of 9 men from FFUMC made the trip to Primo Tapia to install netting around a soccer field on the orphanage property and to hear more about God's vision of the orphanage. COVID made it difficult for a follow-up trip, but we were able to complete a project of building 36 benches for the volunteers' camp housing that has been built on the orphanage property. Despite the social restrictions in place at that time, we managed to involve over 30 members of our congregation in that project in one way or another, and the benches were delivered to the ranch in early 2022. That is probably much more than you care to hear, but at least you've been spared my first version of this story. I remain thankful for the experiences this church and its members have presented to me to participate and benefit from God's challenge to care for the orphan, and I look forward to the next opportunity to do so.
That is good, isn't it? I talked to Don earlier this week, and he is online. So Don, hope you feel better. He was actually feeling much, much better. So, but we thank him for sharing his story. I kind of joked with him after he kind of told me the story on the phone. I go, wow, that was like from a senior to a senior, senior high school to just being a senior.
Oh, I bet he loved that.
Yeah. And but it's really true. There is this wonderful opportunity for all of us to think through, even whether it was for you as you were thinking about just this whole new second half of life. So the role I have here is building community, developing our relationships here. And one of the things, as we're kind of creating these common cause communities, we're doing it out, as Pastor Paula said, with the Pathways of Hope, collecting the food. But you don't do just collection of food. We laugh and we have fun. And it really is amazing when the groups come together and do that. And it's a wonderful time. Then, of course, when we do the burrito breakfast, it is wonderful to see our friends each and every month gather together, and for us to be there every fourth Saturday of the month, no matter what day of the week, no matter what day of the year it falls on, whether it's Christmas Eve or whatever, and people join together. But even with that, we're finding that with the Pathways of Hope and even the burrito breakfast, there are people who join us together that will not be in this building. They're beyond this building. They come and they're part of the Pathways of Hope gathering church. They're part of the burrito breakfast church. And I believe that we have this wonderful opportunity as we kind of reinvigorate what we're doing to do beyond the building church just on the other side of the border as well. And so that is a task, that is a hope, that is a dream that Pastor Paula has invited me to be a part of and begin to try to help to think and look and see. And so I want you guys to be thinking about ways you might be involved in that. But here's another interesting thing. Sometimes there are people who might not come into the building, but would be part of our Beyond the Building ministry. Don't you think? Literally, there are people who drive through. Pastor Paul has someone from a church ago, who comes and actually drives up and will not miss that Saturday morning drop-off. And she considers that church for us as we can connect, whatever. So with that, what I really like to kind of talk about is we've been working with the idea of your own personal transformation. We'll focus on, through the videos and other projects and everything else, on what we can do. But what I want to do is kind of focus on the idea of, as you've watched others have this personal transformation. Because we can talk about doing this work. And in fact, any group can actually go down and work at a mission, and that's a great thing. But that's kind of the common and the cause, you know what I mean? What we're talking about is, what's the community part? What's the spiritual transformation? And so maybe if you could touch a little bit on the idea of even some that you've seen that have come down and you've watched some personal transformation as they've done the work, but in reality, it's done something to them inside as well as the work that they've done on the outside.
Yes, and it goes both ways, because the children that we have responsibility to care for are transforming, and they're being healed and nurtured and loved and cared for. Our guests that come across the border, there's transformation happening there, and it is so fun to see. There's countless stories of young adults, a lot of youth trips, and what we find is, because it's a 2-hour drive, we've got plenty of time to talk. And so their worldview is expanded. When they enter into the country and they see the level of poverty, they start kind of counting their blessings out loud. And then I'll look at them and say, we have first world problems. Right. These are big issues that we're entering into. So we see young people and middle-aged people, older people, really kind of recalibrate their worldview. And it's a worldview that is tied to the heart of God. So it's really, really fun to be a part of.
I know personally, believe it or not, I did youth ministries for many, many years, and I went 20 spring breaks down to Mexicali with Azusa. You know, I don't know if you remember this program, but, I just remember one time when I was talking as a leader to some of the people in the village, right? And I'm looking, and they kind of looked a little exhausted, you know, and like, what? And it was back when they broke up spring break. It used to be all 1 week, right? And there were 2 weeks back to back, and we were on the second week. And I'm like, how are you guys feeling? Well, you know, this is almost a little exhausting for us. You know? And I said, well, why do you do it? You know, he said, it's for you. It's for you. And I just didn't realize that we thought we were coming down there as high school groups and whatever else, and that it was a place. But so often, the blessing came to the individual who was serving and caring. You know, there is this sense, people might be thinking this, and I'm not sure, but we want to be doing a trip coming up here in the summer, and especially with the men. Is there anything that you could think of as we're thinking about going that you may have heard as maybe excuses of why people might not want to go, that you could maybe address, so as people are considering it, I mean, obviously they'd say it's over the border, or it's, you know what I mean, some of these things that might be of concerns in the past. Any wisdom or insight that you might give us as people are considering coming?
Well, I'm very biased. I would say just come.
Yes.
It's going to work.
Yeah.
We're very scripted, so we go together, we caravan together. We're really we don't even go into the Tijuana city area, which is congested. We hug the border along the ocean. So it's a very beautiful drive. It's very tranquil and peaceful. So I like to put people's minds and hearts at ease.
Yes.
And then the orphanage is nestled up in the foothills, so it's very remote and it's just gorgeous. So my encouragement is just come, and we'll take good care of you.
Absolutely. Well,
Is there someone whose story, who came down thinking they were coming down as a have to give to some have-nots, who you know and remember for the transformative experience it was? You have a story about at least one person like that?
Oh,
You don't have to name names.
every group there's at least one.
Okay.
And usually it starts with a fear of, oh, Mexico is so unknown, and I see things on the news, and I'm nervous and scared, and I don't want to go there. But when they do go ahead and take a step forward, and they enter into this ministry with us, they kind of, you watch their countenance change as they arrive, and they see the kids, and they see the facility, they see the mission of what we're doing, and then by the end of the 3 days or the weekend, they're like, I want to come back. So their hearts are at ease. So it's fun to watch that.
So in the video, we get to see the transformation for these young people. But the thing we don't get to see, but we just get to hear today and think about, is the transformation that happens for us. Whether we are, as I've heard you say, doers or donors, right? So we're going to come back to this. We're going to have a little moment for music. And then as Pastor Spencer invites us to live generously, we have a little gift for you and Shannon.
as we do ministry beyond the building, we have teams and team leaders and whatever. And so I've given each of our team leaders here with Beyond the Building Ministries this little token of appreciation, but also a symbol. So it is a compass. So as a scout, you're outside the building, helping us understand where God is at work. We don't need to try to create anything. We just need to go and see where it is already happening. And what you guys are doing, we would love to be a part of and continue to expand it. So that's the compass. But there's also a whistle. And the whistle is make me a little emotional, but our commitment to you that if there's a time where you are in need, we ask that you would not be silent, that you would blow the whistle, you would let us know that we can participate with you in the mission. And so here is for you. And thanks again for being part of our journey. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.